So in the studio today, we've got the Lenovo Thinkpad P14s G6. This is one of their mobile powerhouses, available in both AMD and Intel versions. Now, we've always loved the Thinkpad 14-inch, either T or P series. We've always bought the Ryzen version before. But with the new generation of Core Ultra chips with these new Arc graphics, today we're actually going to be looking at an Intel one, which I think finally is better than its Ryzen counterpart. So before we get into the actual review, I want to quickly talk about the specs available on this Intel version and the price. Now, these Intel variants, the Core Ultra chips, start with a 225H, can go all the way up to that 285H. Now, we've got that mid-spec 255H, which I believe is the best bang per buck on these Intel chips, and we will discuss that more in the performance section. Now, this comes with the Arc graphics, but you can upgrade it to the NVIDIA Blackwell Pro 500 graphics card, but that's a massive £330 extra in the UK, so I have stuck with those Arc, which in my opinion is a great integrated graphics chipset this year. Now, fortunately, it comes with non-soldered RAM, of which we got 16 gigabytes, but we will be upgrading that later on. It comes with one SSD slot, Gen 4. Now, we came with a 512, because again, I'm going to upgrade that myself at a much reduced cost. We get a few options of the monitor, but we have chosen this beautiful 2560 by 1690 Hz display, which I think is the highlight of this P14s range. We also get Wi-Fi 7. We get two battery options, a 57 watt hour or a 75 watt hour, with which we took the latter. Now, my specification in the UK, which I'm going to have on screen here, came in at £1,630, which, although is quite a lot of money, you're getting a ThinkPad 3-year warranty backed mil-spec laptop that's going to last you. So let's start looking around. Now, as always with ThinkPads, these are really solid, tanky laptops. Now, with the P14s Gen 6, on the outer, we've just got the metal chassis, outer and under, none of the soft touch finish. But as you open that up, you do get soft touch on the actual palm rest itself, which is nice. But both the outer and the palm rest are real fingerprint magnets, as you can probably already see, and I cleaned it before I started this review. Now, with regards to the branding, you get your ThinkPad on the top. That does light up on the little dot of the eye as always, so you know when it's in sleep. And we've got the Lenovo logo down here. Otherwise, it's pretty unobtrusive. Now, at the front of the lid, we have the P14s in the corner, and this nice little lip here does make it very easy to open. And as always, you can open it with back 180 degrees. And I love that feature. I know some people think it's pointless, but if you're ever standing up using your laptop or using it in an awkward position, being able to open it up to 180 degrees is very useful. Now, as I mentioned, this feels very solid, and as always, Lenovo build this to withstand military sort of spec testing. With regards to the weight, this comes in at 1.67 kilograms, so easily transportable and holdable with one hand, but it's certainly not going to be the lightest featherlight notebook that you can buy out there. But this is a tanky device that you can be taking to customer sites and not worrying about. Now, with regards to the ports, we get an HDMI 2.1, two Thunderbolt 4 ports, a USB-A that's 5 gigabits, and a headset jack all on the left side. And as we spin it round to the right, you can see we've got an Ethernet jack, which is one of the compact flip downs. Not my favorite, but I still love the fact that we can actually plug in an Ethernet cable. We also have another 5 gigabit USB-A port, and at the back, a Kensington lock. Now, sadly, there was no WAN options when I bought this, and I do usually like to try and get the WAN configuration because I do often use these on client sites, but I'm just going to have to use a hotspot for the time being. Now, with regards to the back, there's absolutely nothing here. And the bottom, you've just got plenty of intake for the cooling system. And at the front here, you see your two downward firing speakers, and they sound like this. Speaker test to the ThinkPad P14s Gen 6, starting at 50% volume. %. And lastly, 100%. So there we go. They're not bad for downward firing speakers. They're not going to replace your MacBook Pro 16, but for Windows laptops, that's actually, not too bad at all. And it does get loud. Opening back up to the soft touch finish palm rest, which feels fantastic. You'll see over on this side, we've got the sort of embossed sort of ThinkPad logo and just my Intel Core 7 sticker because I've got the 255H. We have a nice premium trackpad which glides and clicks really well and the gestures work perfectly. And of course, being a traditional ThinkPad, we do get the Think nipple and the dedicated buttons below. Now that is great news because on some of the actual P1s, they actually removed these buttons, but you still get that with the P series. So I use those a lot, that's very handy. Moving up to the keyboard, we get a backlit traditional ThinkPad keyboard, reasonable amount of travel, the usual disc-shaped keys that feel fantastic to type on. One of the main reasons I still buy ThinkPads as my daily beaters. I absolutely love these. They feel great to type on. I love the layout. The backlighting is just okay, but it's still nice to have. At the top of the keyboard, we got our function keys and multimedia keys, and you can choose the priority, whether you want the functions being the priority or the actual multimedia keys being the priority. At the moment, you can see I'm set to multimedia keys. One of the things I do particularly like is we now get a mode button, which allows you to switch the actual power mode of the laptop. Now the power mode is tied in to the Windows power mode, so you can switch it within the Windows power options or just by hitting this mode key here, and you can see it does flick up on the screen telling you what power mode you're in. I really like that, although the power modes aren't as necessary on this model as we'll see later on. To the top right of the keyboard, we do get the power button, which has a built-in fingerprint reader. The power button is quite small though, so as it works perfectly. I do find, it's not easy to just quickly put your finger on there. And above the power button, you see we have the status light, which shows you whether you're powered on or in sleep. Now, as we move up to the display, I've got the beautiful 2560 by 1600 90Hz panel, 400 nits of brightness, and 100% sRGB. This is a fantastic panel and definitely worth the small charge when you're configuring this laptop. Now, as always with Lenovo, the base model is pretty poor. It's 1200p, 45% gamma, which is very low. But as usual, the companies buying this, trying to save some money, will buy that low quality screen for most of their employees. But if you're buying this for yourself, definitely upgrade it. Above the screen, we've got the 5 megapixel webcam, which looks and sounds like this. This is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the new Lenovo Thinkpad P14s Gen 6. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think this looks and sounds like. It also includes Windows Hello facial recognition to quickly log you in as you open your lid, which I absolutely love. So you then have a choice between the fingerprint reader and that facial recognition. We also have the Think Shutter webcam lock. And as you flick that across, you'll notice the webcam goes red to denote it's actually locked off, so nobody can hijack your webcam. But please note, when you do enable that feature and lock off your webcam, you also lose the Windows Hello facial recognition. But as we do get the fingerprint reader as well, that's not too much of an issue. But it's very nice and easy to flick it between on and off for that webcam. Okay, so now we've looked around this laptop, let's crack it open and take a look inside. Now, as always with ThinkPads, opening them up is incredibly straightforward. We just need to remove 6 Phillips screws and then pry the actual base panel off the laptop itself. Make sure you start from the back and lift it towards you, because there are clips right across the front locking this down into the actual chassis. Now, once you've taken that base plate off, you're greeted with our large 75 watt hour battery that you could save £10 to get 57 watt hour, but I'm not sure who's going to choose that option. Most people buying these laptops do want battery life. You'll notice that we have one Gen 4 SSD installed that's an 80mm and has a heatsink on to keep it nice and cool, and 2 DDR5 RAM chips covered by some Mylar tape. Now, I've bought the base 16GB here that is 5600 mega transfers RAM. You can go all the way up to 6400 mega transfers, and that's something we're going to look at in a future video. We also have a built-in Wi-Fi 7 card, but it is soldered on, so you can't change that yourself. Though with it being Wi-Fi 7, you're probably not going to need to. And you'll see that there is a WAN slot in here, but there is no option to be able to configure that WAN card, so that is a real shame. Then moving to the top of the laptop, we have a 2-fan and a heatsink cooling solution for that Intel chip, which is more than adequate for the tiny amount of heat this Intel chip produces. And on that note, let's look at performance. So as I mentioned in the intro, I've bought the Core Ultra 255H. Now this is a 6 performance core, 8 efficiency cores, and 2 low power efficiency cores with no hyper-threading. But that's more than enough cores to make this a very powerful little CPU. Now you can buy a cheaper 225H CPU, though you get a very slightly lower clock speed and you lose 2 of the performance cores. And you can go right up to the 285 or the 265H, and they will give you exactly the same but a very slight higher boost clocks, which makes, in my opinion, the 255H the best chip to buy for the majority of users out there. Now, with regards to the performance on this chip, Geekbench 6 give very good single core and multi-core scores for this little processor in here. Now, there are 3 power plans that you can use tied to the Windows power plans. So you've got the best efficiency, the balanced and the best performance mode. And I did find there was a significant difference on CPU tests between these 3. But as I moved to the Cinebench R24, which is a 10-minute long torture test on these CPUs, I found some very unusual behavior for this processor. Now, each of the profiles had a boost speed of 66 watts for a few seconds, and then they gradually came down in power. Now, the best efficiency mode drops down to a 30 watts and stays there flat absolutely perfectly. The balance mode does the same but at 40 watts, and the best performance drops down to a solid 50 watts right through the rest of the 10-minute test. Now, interestingly, on each of the 3 profiles, that CPU does get quite hot initially until they drop down to their standard 30, 40 and 50 watt long-term boost. So I did see at some points 100 degrees C, which is a bit worrisome because the fans never seem to ramp up on this laptop. This has got to be one of the quietest systems I've ever used. Now, on the best efficiency mode, the fans hardly seem to be spinning at all. They don't even register on my decibel meter. Same goes for balanced. If it's even hitting 30 decibels, I'd be surprised. And then the actual high performance mode, I'm getting just over about 32 to 33 decibels when I'm maxing this CPU out, making this by far the quietest Windows laptop I've used ever, I think, on this channel. It's absolutely impressive. And that also translates over to the GPU testing we've done. This has the Arc 140T in it, which is one of the new Intel Arc graphics cards that is actually, in my opinion, better than the Ryzen 890M on the Ryzen side of the actual integrated graphics chipsets. Now, running some games and some time-spy benchmarks on each of the 3 profiles gave very similar sort of scores. It does max out that 140T, which is very impressive. Again, sitting at about 30 watts in the gaming sort of benchmarks. And surprisingly, on each of the 3 profiles, this thing stays so incredibly cool and quiet, it wasn't even worth me bothering trying to measure the actual sound noise. Only the full performance mode kicked up to 32 decibels, which is unusually quiet for a Windows laptop that can actually run some games. Now, talking of running some games, this 140T is actually no slouch as well. Running on my 1080p 240Hz monitor, I was able to run some pretty good games such as Apex, Finals, some of my strategy games, Dota, all worked absolutely perfect at that 1080p resolution. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't going to beat a gaming laptop. You've got to be looking at about 40 to 50 frames per second on some of the higher games. But the fact you can play it on integrated graphics is really impressive. That leads over to then productivity sort of software. I was even able to run DaVinci Resolve Studio on this laptop and edit some of that gameplay footage. I was even able to export an 11-minute video at just over a minute on the integrated graphics on this chipset. Now, if that's still not enough for you, you can upgrade to that RTX 500 Blackwell chip, but that is a very expensive upgrade that you must know you're going to need. Otherwise, just get that Intel. It really is quite impressive. And being such a low power machine means not only do you get a small USB-C power adapter with this laptop, but it will run on power delivery on pretty much all your monitors out there. Now, I've been running it with my Razer 100 watt dock absolutely perfectly, but it also works really nicely on my sort of larger USB PD monitors. And that's one of the reasons I absolutely love these P14s and T14 laptops. I can take them anywhere. I'm not having to worry about taking power supplies. I can pretty much power off anything. And with regards to the actual battery life on this little bad boy, I ran it on our usual YouTube streaming test at 200 nits of brightness over Wi-Fi at the 90 Hertz with the backlight on the keyboard. And I got 9 hours and 40 minutes of battery life, which is really quite impressive and very unusual for Intel. So this is going to last you a long time. And then when you do need to juice up, you can just use any old USB-C charger or even a power bank to get some more life out of it. So then that takes me through to the conclusion. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I've always bought the Ryzen versions of the T14 and P14 laptops, and I've always loved them. Ryzen are a great chip. But that was when there was no competition. Intel graphics were appalling for years with their Iris graphics. They were really bad for anything other than just 2D sort of work and maybe a little bit of Blender or something. Whereas with these 140T Arc graphics cards, not only can you do a bit of gaming, your Blender, your Photoshop, light video editing are all going to run perfectly on just the integrated graphics, meaning that this is a great little daily beater you can take everywhere with you and get the majority of people's desktop work done. Now, the fact that it is USB-C with power delivery capable means I can just come back to the office at the end of the day, plug it into my large monitor to have a much better screen, keyboard and mouse all in my docked experience. And that's something I've always done and I love doing. And the reason that I usually buy these T14s and P14s for me to be using my day-to-day workflow. Now it is quite expensive. As I say, this model came in at $1,630, but as always with Lenovo, there are often discounts. So we'll put a link to this model down in the description so that you can check the current prices. But considering the price of the AMD model, I think that this is the absolute winner this year. And it's going to be my daily beater going on forward now. So that's my review of the Lenovo Thinkpad P14s Gen 6, a truly remarkable daily beater and one that I'm going to be keeping for the foreseeable future. But as always, I'd love to know what you guys think. Would you consider a P14 for your day-to-day laptop? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, I will get back to you. And lastly, thanks for watching.